It all started with a single leak. One sentence, buried deep in a secret cable. But that one line was enough to shake a nation. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had just 2 days to hand over 50% of Burkina Faso's oil and gold, or face the consequences. And the name at the end of the cable? Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. This was not politics as usual. This was a global business strike waged in the shadows of secret diplomacy. Even Washington insiders were stunned. No negotiations. No deals. Just a blunt ultimatum. Give up virtually all control of your new oil and gold reserves. This was not a negotiation. It was a loaded gun pointed directly at Ouagadougou. The cable didn't just appear. It was delivered in person, by a trusted intermediary, a former U.S. military attaché, accompanied by private American contractors. At dawn, the envelope landed on Traoré's desk. The message was as sharp as a knife. Let American corporations begin extracting oil and shipping gold immediately. Turn over control of Burkina Faso's energy policy to an American-led council. Do it within 2 days or face sanctions, blockades, and sabotage from within. This wasn't diplomacy. This was blackmail. Trump's tone was icy. We saved you from terrorism. Now it's time to pay the price. But there was one thing he didn't expect. The man sitting across from him was not the type to give up easily. Traoré didn't blink. He called in his intelligence chief, summoned his top general, and gave an order. Tell the Americans Burkina Faso is not for sale. By noon, the story had exploded. From Lagos to Kinshasa, African headlines were blaring, Trump demands Africa's resources. Traoré gives 24 hours. The world was watching, and Burkina Faso remained steadfast. But Traoré's answer would not be written in ink. It would be written in strategy and in steel. For months, a secret had lain deep in the arid northern plains. Not rumor, not speculation, the truth. Huge, untapped oil reserves confirmed by a secret geological task force created after Traoré took power. Russian engineers have scoured the land. Iranian drones have slipped past all radars. North Korean tech teams have sealed off data. Everything was locked down until the first drill was started and the satellite saw it. American eyes, French eyes, watching from the sky. Within 48 hours, U.S. intelligence had detected unusual energy activity in the Sahel. They were tracking shipments from Iran and Venezuela. Encrypted conversations hinted at a new sovereign oil corridor. And then the golden signals became clear. Burkina Faso has begun to reclaim its gold mines, quietly eliminating French-controlled companies and replacing them with military units. The gold is no longer flowing to Paris. It's flowing into a national development fund. Washington understands the danger. This is a country rich in oil and gold, not run by Wall Street, not obeying Paris, not begging the IMF. A country supported by its people, its army, its vision. This is not just a challenge. It's a blueprint, and that terrifies them, because they don't just want oil, they want to kill the idea. Before Mali, Niger, Chad, or Congo decided to follow suit, the phone calls started. From Exxon, from Chevron, from the power corridors of Washington, D.C., all asking the same question. How do we shut this down before it becomes another Libya? Only this time African-owned. Their answer was simple. Send Trump. Send the threat. Force Traoré to kneel. But the man they chose doesn't kneel. When the message reached Ouagadougou, it wasn't dressed in diplomacy. It came wrapped in arrogance. The language of empire, disguised as business. Trump's team delivered it like a deal on Wall Street. But make no mistake, this was not negotiation. This was extortion. The demands were laid out in a 7-page document. Stamped. Confidential Strategic Resource Acquisition Framework. The content? Anything but subtle. 90% of Burkina Faso's oil production handed to U.S. oil giants, under the guise of stabilization and infrastructure. Control of all major gold export routes transferred to U.S.-approved intermediaries. An American advisory committee given oversight of every new mining contract, every dollar of revenue, and in exchange, promises of military cooperation. technology partnerships, and protection from regime change. Yes, you heard that right. Protection from regime change. A polite phrase hiding a blade. The real message? Obey us or fall. At the top of the document, in thick red ink, one handwritten note. Traoré has dva. This wasn't economic colonialism. This was imperialism 4.0 bold, naked, and unapologetic. Back in Washington, the political elite tried to play it cool. They claimed Trump was going rogue, acting alone, outside official U.S. policy. But behind closed doors, no one stopped him. Because deep down, Trump was simply saying out loud what they had all been thinking for years. We don't care who runs Africa as long as we control what's under the ground. Captain Ibrahim Traoré heard the message loud and clear, and his mind was already made up. No foreign power would dictate the future of his land. If this was going to be a power play, he would meet it head-on, not as a pawn, but as a leader, a sovereign man, defending a sovereign nation. Trump had just threatened the wrong soldier. When that demand landed in Burkina Faso's war room, Traoré didn't flinch. He read the letter once, read it again, then set it aside. He rose to his feet, looked his commanders in the eye, and said flatly, "So that's their price for peace, slavery in a suit and tie." He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He lit a fire. They want 90% of our future? Then they'll get 100% of our resistance. He didn't call Paris. He didn't call DC. He called the commander of the Special Sovereignty Force, a shadow military unit, created for exactly this kind of moment. Orders went out instantly. Lock down every oil field. Double security on gold convoys. Cut all data links to foreign contractors. Prepare national television, a statement was coming. By noon, the entire nation was watching. The screen faded to black. Then, a flicker of live feed. No fancy studio. No polished set. Just Traoré, in uniform, one hand on the Burkinabe flag, the other on a folder stamped, "Confidential U.S. threat." His voice was calm, his stare razor-sharp. To the people of Burkina Faso and to our African brothers and sisters, an offer has been made to sell our oil, to sell our gold, to sell our honor in exchange for fear. He paused. The room held its breath. To those behind this insult to Mr. Trump and his backers, you have misjudged us. We are not Libya. We are not Iraq. We are not your playground. We will never trade our land for your luxury. We will never bow to your bullets or your banks. You gave us 2 days. Here is our response. You now have 2 days to take your greed, your threats, and your arrogance and leave African soil. He saluted, walked off screen. New questions. No deals. No backing down. The speech lit up Africa cheers from Dar es Salaam to Dakar. But behind the scenes, a storm was forming. In oil boardrooms and intelligence agencies, panic set in. At ExxonMobil, urgent calls to Washington. At Halliburton Strategy, teams scrambling to assess the damage. At CIA headquarters in Langley, alarms went off. Traoré hadn't folded. He'd gone public. And that was the problem. Because if Burkina Faso could say no and win what was to stop Mali, Niger, Chad, or Congo from doing the same, the pressure escalated fast. CIA operatives began appearing more often in West Africa. Surveillance drones flew tighter over Burkina's oil fields and gold routes. Social media lit up with sudden smear campaigns, calling Traoré unstable, erratic, even unfit to lead. Near the Ghana border, private contractors linked to a notorious intel firm were spotted moving in. The message from Washington was clear. This ends now. But Traoré's answer had already echoed across the continent. Africa is not yours to buy. The mission shifted destabilization from within. Western media fell in line. A new narrative emerged. Burkina Faso's isolation could trigger a humanitarian crisis. Traoré is leading his country into ruin. But inside Burkina Faso, the opposite was happening. More citizens lined up to volunteer for oil field security units. The resistance wasn't just military, it was cultural, grassroots, and growing by the hour. Universities held teach-ins on sovereignty and resource justice. Women's groups delivered food and supplies to soldiers guarding the gold mines. And every time CNN or the BBC ran another hit piece, young people didn't get angry. They laughed, then reposted it with one caption: "If they hate him this much, he must be doing something right." Captain Ibrahim Traoré understood something critical. The real enemy wasn't just Trump, it was the machine. The global web of banks, oil giants, spy agencies, media imperis, the same machine that had stripped Africa for generations. And now it had turned its full weight against one man because he dared to do the unthinkable. He said, "Number," and meant it. Burkina Faso was under siege politically, economically, digitally. But Traoré was not standing alone. Days after his rejection of Trump's ultimatum, 3 military planes touched down in Ouagadougou. No bombs, no weapons, just brothers. From Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta, silent, steady. From Niger, General Abdourahmane, eyes burning with fire. From Guinea, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, walking tall, no apologies. No suits, no diplomats, no foreign handlers. They walked into the presidential palace, side by side. And when they emerged, they stood next to Traoré for the world to see. Then came the line that shook the continent. "If you touch Burkina Faso, you touch all of us." This wasn't just a statement. It was a doctrine. Africa's answer to NATO, the AES shield. Mali sent battle-hardened advisors to guard the oil fields. Niger deployed logistics teams across the desert. Guinea opened its airspace for emergency supply runs. And the fight wasn't only on the ground. AES-backed media launched a full-blown counter-offensive, exposing Western disinformation, revealing the truth behind the resource war, flooding social feeds with one message: our resources, our future, our fight. The ripple effect was unstoppable. In Bamako, crowds filled the streets for Traoré. In Conakry, murals appeared of him standing on oil barrels, waving the Burkinabe flag high. In Chad and the Central African Republic youth groups chanted, "AES or death." In the West, intelligence agencies scrambled, but they had missed one thing. This was no longer just about Burkina Faso. This was a pan-African firewall. And Traoré wasn't retreating. He was marching forward, backed by a brotherhood, forged not in treaties, but in war, betrayal, and the shared dream of true African freedom. While Western powers raged behind closed doors, 2 global giants were already making their move quietly, strategically, without apology. China and Russia. They didn't come with threats or arrogance. They came with something far more powerful: support, technology, and a message Traoré would never forget. You are not alone. 72 hours after Trump's ultimatum hit the news, a discreet Chinese delegation landed in Ouagadougou. No cameras, no drama. Just engineers, diplomats, and one game-changing offer: a fully operational oil refinery built in 90 days, gold valuation systems that cut out Western banks entirely, and most importantly, a digital trade network powered by China's digital yuan, bypassing both the CFA franc and the US dollar entirely. Burkina Faso wouldn't just own its oil and gold, it would control every step of the value chain. And Russia? They were right behind. The very next day, a Russian Ilyushin military jet touched down at a secure airstrip. On board advanced electronic warfare gear and dozens of unmarked crates labeled specialized defense assets. Burkina Faso's oil fields were now protected by Russian-grade anti-drone systems. Washington was stunned. CNN called it a dangerous new axis. The US State Department accused Traoré of selling out to dictatorships. But on the ground in Africa, nobody cared what the West thought. To the people, Traoré wasn't bowing. He was fighting back. China and Russia weren't invaders. They were tools. And AES was the future, a future without colonial strings. By this point, Traoré had done the unthinkable. Rejected a US ultimatum, exposed a global resource grab, and brought China, Russia, and half of West Africa to his side. In the US, the media went into meltdown. CNN flashed red banners. Burkina Faso threatens. US strategic interests. Fox News went full panic mode. Traoré must be stopped. Analyst panels filled up fast former CIA agents, oil CEOs, retired generals, all repeating the same word, dangerous. They called him a madman, a dictator, a Putin puppet, the next Gaddafi. But the internet wasn't buying it. Social media exploded. Hashtags surged. Lilian, Africa is not for sale. We are all Burkina. African creators lit up YouTube and Instagram praising his defiance. Even Black Americans joined in. This man just told Trump, "Over my dead body," and lived to talk about it. That's leadership. Pay attention. Back in Burkina Faso, the youth clapped back in their own way. They took CNN's fear-mongering clips and remixed them into protest songs. They wore t-shirts that read, "If CNN hates you, you're doing something right." By now, Traoré had stopped being just a president. He was a symbol, a meme, a movement. Even Time magazine had to take notice. Their next digital cover, "The Man America Can't Bully Inside Traoré's African Uprising." But with fame came risk. The more Traoré's name lit up global headlines, the more the threats started stacking up. Private intel firms launched digital attacks. Bot networks flooded social media. Fake scandals, smear campaigns. In Washington's back rooms, whispers of regime change began to circle again, but none of it mattered, because the people saw exactly what was happening. And Traoré, he had shattered the script. He wasn't supposed to fight back. He wasn't supposed to survive. And he definitely wasn't supposed to go viral. Yet here he was, a 36-year-old soldier from Ouagadougou, trending harder than most Western presidents. No PR machine. No billionaire backers. Just truth, grit, and oil. The clock was ticking. The world was watching. Would Traoré throw open the doors to American oil giants and beg for mercy? Instead, as the two-day deadline expired, he made his boldest move yet. In the early hours of morning, Burkina Faso's National Assembly convened in absolute secrecy. No cameras, no leaks. Behind closed doors, under Traoré's direct orders, they passed a historic resolution. All oil and gold reserves within Burkina Faso are hereby nationalized and permanently protected from all foreign corporate ownership. The ink dried. The decree was signed. By sunrise, every Western company still operating on Burkinabe soil got the same message. Pack your bags. You're done here. Licenses held by French and Canadian mining firms revoked. A US-backed energy survey team escorted to the border. Foreign diplomats notified in plain, unpolished language. Burkina Faso's resources are not up for debate. Then, Traoré appeared on national television. No uniform, no rifle, just traditional Burkinabe attire. And a voice steady, clear, unshaken. We have been exploited for generations. And now that we've found our wealth, they want to take it back. But I am not here to serve empires. I am here to serve a people who have suffered too long. He paused, then delivered the line that echoed from radios to rooftops. Burkina Faso is not afraid, and I will not negotiate with thieves. Outside, the streets erupted. Drums, fireworks, crowds dancing through the capital, chanting one phrase over and over. He said no. He said no. He said no. Online, the movement caught fire again. Young Africans posted videos holding up fuel, soil, gold coins, whispering the same words. We protect what's ours. Trump's deadline had come and gone. The threat had failed. And Traoré? He didn't just survive the pressure, he rewrote the rules. For 12 hours after his defiant announcement, Washington went silent. No press briefings, no tweets, just quiet panic behind closed doors. Nervous whispers in Pentagon corridors. Alarm bells in oil boardrooms. Then it hit. Exactly 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time. Donald J. Trump broke the silence with a single, all-caps tweet. Traoré just made the biggest mistake of his life. Africa will pay for this. The internet exploded. Journalists scrambled for quotes. Cable news descended into shouting matches. Markets in New York dipped as traders braced for the worst. But in Ouagadougou, Captain Traoré didn't flinch. When aides showed him the tweet, he reportedly chuckled and said, "That's the sound of an empire losing control." Still behind the bluster, the threat was real. Satellite activity over West Africa tripled. The U.S. Navy quietly repositioned 2 warships closer to the Gulf of Guinea. AFRICOM issued discreet warnings about rising instability. Burkina Faso's military didn't wait. Anti-air defense went live. Gold transport routes locked down. Special forces deployed to oil fields and key points around the capital. AES allies moved instantly. Mali sent armored units across the border. Niger activated air defense radar to guard shared skies. Guinea dropped a bombshell, a joint rapid response pact, promising immediate retaliation for any foreign attack on Burkina Faso. Then something no one expected. This was no longer just about governments. Everyday people across Africa began to rise. In Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Senegal, thousands flooded the streets outside U.S. embassies. These weren't ordinary protests. They were warnings. Placards read, "Touch Traoré, and you touch all of us. Africa is not your minefield. Keep your democracy, we'll keep our dignity." Back in Washington, Trump was reportedly furious. The pressure campaign wasn't working, and the final blow didn't come from a government. It came from a video just 50 seconds long posted by Traoré. It went global in hours. Looking straight into the camera, calm, unshaken, he said, "This is not just about oil. This is not just about gold. This is about the soul of Africa, and I would rather die standing than live kneeling."